The Flood and the Silence. On Content Farms, AI Propaganda, and the Censorship of Meaning. Elias Winter, April 20th, 2025. In a previous essay, To Love a Nation is to Know Its Ghosts, I traced the long lineage of American censorship, how the suppression of speech, especially immigrant speech, was not a betrayal of our founding, but its design. That tradition remains, but this essay names what has changed. Censorship in America does not look like it used to. We imagine the burning of books, the blacklists of the 1950s, the moral panic of librarians. We imagine silence as an act of state repression. What we do not imagine, because it is harder to see, is the drowning, the saturation, the flood. This is the censorship of our era, not only the prohibition of speech, but the profusion of noise, not just the jail cell, but the algorithm, not the knock at the door alone, but the endless scroll that makes forgetting feel like freedom. And unlike past regimes, the gatekeepers no longer need to silence the dissident. They simply need to bury him in a grave of content. 1. The new machinery. There is no scarcity of voice today. Publishing takes no printing press, no editor, no clearance. It is a button, a platform, a script, a model, a machine. In one sense, it's beautiful, democratic, almost divine. Those once unheard can now speak. Those once hidden, now seen. But this same architecture makes the flood inevitable. When expression becomes free, expression becomes cheap. And when content becomes cheap, power reasserts itself not by blocking truth, but by making it indistinguishable from fiction. We do not ban books. We make books irrelevant. We do not silence prophets. We drown them in optimized prose. This is the architecture of the modern internet. 1 billion bots, auto-generated channels, deep fake newscasters, synthetic faces with soothing voices and no soul. It is the rise of what I call automated ideology. Content not created, but farmed. Not written, but emitted. Designed not to express a human mind, but to simulate one. And here's the truth we refuse to say out loud. This content is not coming from humans. It cannot be. No person can write or film or edit at this velocity. No soul can speak in 100 tongues a day. This is not creation. It is deployment. It is code. 2. Who writes the flood? Every flood has a source. The systems churning out ideological content, be it right-wing propaganda, state-sanctioned paranoia, or synthetic spiritual bypass, are not spontaneous. They are not the product of some kid in their basement. They are funded, maintained, updated, and protected. By whom? You already know. You know that no one without capital or access could maintain these systems. You know that only the rich, or the state, have the incentives and infrastructure to deploy content at this scale. You know that platforms like YouTube, Facebook, or Substack already track the origins, volumes, and traffic patterns of these farms. You know they could shut them down. And you know they choose not to. Why? Because chaos is profitable. Because propaganda sells. Because to stop the bots would be to stop the ads, the engagement, the dopamine loop, and because some of these farms serve the interest of those who own the platforms themselves. Let us name one. WION, a channel ostensibly Indian, but oddly fixated on American cultural and political tension. Why would a media arm of an Indian billionaire report breathlessly on U.S. race protests, crime trials, or partisan legal battles? Because it's not news. It's narrative laundering. American chaos delivered in a neutral accent, wrapped in global authority, and seeded with emotional bait. This is not journalism. It is simulation. And yes, it should alarm us, because it means the American mind, already softened by spectacle, is being farmed. Not by domestic politicians alone, but by foreign capital, synthetic channels, and AI-powered ideological proxies. And we let it happen. Because the man who owns the channel funds the man who owns the ad exchange, who funds the man who owns the lobbyist, who funds the man who owns the law. 3. The woman with the cowboy hat. I saw her once. A woman with a warm southern drawl and a perfect smile. She delivered the news every day like a local anchor, always calm, always composed, but something didn't sit right. Her eyes never blinked the same. Her head never tilted differently. Her voice had no fatigue, no hesitation, no presence. She was perfect. And then I saw it. She wasn't real. She was AI. Generated to deliver news that never bore a source, scripted to appeal to a demographic profile, trained to bypass skepticism by embodying familiarity. This is not dystopia. This is YouTube, today. And it is working, because the body responds to voice long before it processes truth, because we crave faces we can trust, and because in the flood, even an artificial face feels like land. 4. The comment that got buried. Try commenting on a New York Times article. Not with hate, not with spam, just a clear, inconvenient truth. One that doesn't fit the ambient narrative. One that carries real moral weight. You will find that it doesn't get published. Not immediately. It will be under review. Sometimes for hours, sometimes forever. And then, if it gets through, it will be number 473 out of 500. It will be published in a batch, one among many, deep in the comment thread, beneath the curated consensus. This is the performance of liberalism. We didn't delete it, we just buried it. The Times claims to review comments only for civility, but we know better. The algorithm scanning those words is trained to recognize more than rudeness. It recognizes ideology. It detects dissent. It scores threat levels. It flags moral clarity that might rupture the soft fabric of elite consensus. And that consensus has a flavor: gentle reform, hollow outrage, historical amnesia, and institutional reverence. The kind of truth that threatens no one in power. The kind of truth that makes you feel informed but leaves you powerless. This is the great betrayal. That the very institutions claiming to protect speech are the ones suppressing it. That the paper once home to Chris Hedges, who left when truth could no longer survive in its pages, now launders compliance through the language of civility. Don't be fooled. This is not moderation. This is censorship. Algorithmic, sanitized, and plausibly deniable. And it's worse than the overt kind, because it wears the mask of discourse, because it still calls itself free. 5. The dead internet theory. There is a theory, whispered on forums and dismissed in public, that the internet is already dead. That most of what we see, posts, videos, arguments, is not human at all. That we are speaking to ghosts. That the machine now speaks more than we do, and that our clicks feed it script. I used to think it was paranoia. Now I'm not so sure. Because my own mother cannot find her friends' posts on Facebook anymore. Because even my writing, when done too fast, too easy, risks blending into the white noise. Because the greatest threat to speech today is not silence, but saturation. To be buried is worse than to be banned, because in the age of the flood, nothing is remembered. 6. What then must we do? There is no clean solution. The system is not broken. It is optimized for scale, for profit, for control. But we are not helpless. We can choose to write from the soul, not for clicks, not for cadence, not for branding, but from truth. We can resist the pace. We can reject the optimization. We can honor slowness as a form of moral clarity. We can stop pretending that content is neutral or that platforms are platforms. They are battlegrounds. And if you don't name your enemy, you are already speaking their script. And yes, maybe your work will be drowned. Maybe no one will read it. But someone might. And if one soul is pierced by your clarity, one mind sharpened, one heart steadied, then you have already broken the machine. Because meaning, unlike content, cannot be manufactured. It can only be born. Elias Winter, author of Language Matters, a space for reflection on language, power, and decline.